Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's CITI program webinar. Today's topic is International Students in Focus at U.S. Higher Education Institutions, and it is presented by Jeannie Jaworski. This webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be available on the CITI program's website. Now, let me tell you about today's presenter, Jeannie Jaworski. Jeannie is a scholar practitioner with a decade of experience in the field of international education. Her career has included oversight for all the areas of comprehensive campus internationalization, including international partnerships, international student and scholar services, international enrollment management, intensive English language programs, global teaching and learning, global student leadership development, and education abroad programming. Jeannie has a Master of Education from Carroll University and a Bachelor of Arts in English and Spanish from the University of Iowa. She is currently pursuing her doctorate in Education Policy, Organization, and Leadership from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign.
Today I'm going to be presenting on International Students in Focus at U.S. Higher Education Institutions. We have 3 learning objectives for today's presentation. The first is to identify the common visa types permitting study, research, and employment on U.S. campuses. The second is to review recent and expected immigration policy updates and their implications for students and higher education institutions. And the third is to describe F1 international student enrollment trends and data on the F1 student contributions. To achieve our learning objectives, today's webinar will have 3 parts: an overview of visas and regulations, a discussion on recent immigration policy updates, and finally, a final review of international students in the U.S. As previously shared, the most common visa types you'll find on a U.S. campus are F, M, J, and H visa holders. To start with the most common, F visa holders, known as F1 students, are in the U.S. with the primary purpose of studying. Students can obtain an F1 visa to study at the primary, secondary, and post-secondary levels. And post-secondary students stay in F1 status when they finish their studies and transition to a 1 to 3 year off-campus work benefit connected to their degree completion. We'll talk about this a bit later. Although M1 visa holders also have the primary purpose of studying, they are far less common than F1 visas. M1 visas are issued for students participating in technical, vocational, and flight training programs. The M1 visa offers less flexibility and is more regulated than the F1 visa, so whenever possible, institutions prefer to enroll students on F1 visas. However, all flight training programs may only use the M1 visa type. While you'll find many J1 visa holders on U.S. campuses, that's not the only place you'll find J1s. There are over 12 different categories of J1 visas, and visa holders can fulfill their educational exchange objectives in a variety of ways, including as au pairs or working at amusement parks through the work and travel program. In a higher ed context, J1s are usually your 1 to 2 semester exchange students coming to study through bilateral exchange agreements. It's also very common for universities to host J1 scholars, researchers, specialists, and teachers who support various research and scholarship initiatives on campus through articulated exchange agreements usually as well. And finally, the most common visa type on the last most common visa type on a U.S. campus is the H visa holder. H is a visa designated for temporary workers. You'll likely find 2 types of H visa holders on your campus. The first is the primary visa holder, which is an H1 and specifically an H1B, which is designed for specialty occupations. Many individuals in tech, medicine, and business are working in the U.S. with special skills or training that qualify them for this visa type. While their primary purpose is work, the H visa does allow for a secondary purpose of study, so long as it's not full-time. So this means that you might have individuals on your campuses who are studying for graduate level credentials on a part-time basis while also on their H-1B. Another type of H visa holder you may have is a dependent of a primary H visa holder. Individuals on H-4s are dependent children under age 21 who are permitted to study full or part-time in connection to their parents' H-1B visa. We're going to talk about the H-1 visa. So now that we've covered some of the recent regulatory updates, I want to close with information about our students and the incredible impact they have on our campuses and in our communities. The past decade has seen significant growth in international students on U.S. campuses. The 2018-19 academic year was the fourth year with over 1 million F1 students on our campuses. As you can see from this data from the Institute for International Education's annual Open Doors report, not only has the number of international students grown over the past decade, but also the percentage of students on U.S. campuses who are international has also grown. Of course, this data also shows some concerning information about how international student enrollments are trending. Since 2016-17, we have seen a decrease in enrollment of growth, approximately halving each year. So while the numbers continue to increase, they do so at much smaller rates each year. Driving into the Open Doors data also shows some concerning trends. Because universities are responsible for reporting on F1 students through their OPT authorization, the numbers reported for F1 students in the U.S. include recent graduates who are currently on OPT. In looking at this data, you can see that the only student group that increased in 2018-19 was the group of students on OPT, so students not even enrolled at U.S. universities. Undergraduate, graduate, and non-degree students actually all decreased in 2018-19. So reporting the overall international student increase of 0.05% is rather misleading because in fact there are fewer international students on our actual campuses already. This is also evident in looking at the new international student enrollment trends. Whereas the previous figures all reported on total students, the second half of this chart shows new international students by year, which shows a
I'll give you the first one. Many institutions are creating secondary spaces with desks to keep the 6-foot distance, such as gyms and libraries. If there is a campus using online learning, but there is also this campus component, will that satisfy the requirement of being in person?
Yeah, this is a great question. So before I respond, just a reminder that the updated guidance, that July 24th guidance, stated that continuing students could be fully online. So this is now only an issue for new students. And I'd like to start by saying that anytime that there's an area of gray, there really needs to be an institutional decision discussed with appropriate legal counsel. So I can share on my campus, I decided to be consistent with how we track and differentiate in-person and online courses any other time. And that's by relying on how the course is coded in our student information system, which is Banner for us. So I don't think it's a problem at all for campuses to set up these alternative learning spaces like the library or the gym. But in order for that to be considered an in-person course on my campus, there would need to be an appropriately coded section. And that's so that when we run reports, we see that the student does not have fully online coursework. Part of this reason is just due to our ability to review 1,200 student records efficiently through coding. The other part, though, is for future auditing. If in the future we were asked to demonstrate that a student had an in-person course during the fall 2020 term, it's a lot easier for us to do that by showing the registration record and shows the coding as on campus than trying to keep records of which online courses actually added in-person requirements to fulfill this regulation. So that's how we're doing it on my campus, but I think that each campus has to decide how they want to interpret and implement that.
We encourage you to monitor the CITI program website for additional information about future webinars, available on-demand recordings of past webinars, and our new all-access webinar package.